Okay, welcome to Uncensored Conservatism. This is episode 209. Today, continuing to look at Marxism and its effect on uh, black people. So, with Marxism and the black civil rights movement that started in the 50s and exploded in the 1960s, I'm not going to go into too much detail here. You can Google it yourself. Suffice to say, some Marxists have certainly infiltrated the movement, but not everyone involved was a Marxist. Early unionization efforts were certainly Marxist in nature, and they clearly tried to unite black and white workers under a single banner, but that was for their particular cause, which is kind of ironic because unions were and continue to be some of the most racist organizations out there. Now, the Socialist Workers' Party likewise was Marxist in nature, and they too wooed and recruited many black people at the time. And of course, the black militancy of the 1960s, best exemplified by the Black Panthers, eventually faded out, and this left a void of black militancy among the masses. After the Michael Brown nonsense in Ferguson, Missouri, people like Jesse Jackson, a member of the Old Guard, was actually booed off of the stage in one appearance there, and he never came back. So, what did Marx himself think about black people? In a letter to his buddy, Frederick Engels, he wrote that blacks were the closest ethnicity to the animal kingdom. Marx would probably have no problem comparing blacks to apes or monkeys. Marx, by the way, he had some ugly things to say about other people like Jews, who he compared to hucksters. In another letter, Marx commented on the peculiar head shape of blacks and their hair texture in a less than complimentary light. He also believed that blacks, because of their inferior intellect, would hold back the whole of humanity. So clearly, Marx did not view black people very highly. So why would black people embrace Marxism? And nothing more exemplifies this phenomena than the Black Lives Matter movement. It was formed in 2013 when Trayvon Skittles Martin was killed by George Zimmerman, a neighborhood watch volunteer in Florida. Now, Zimmerman was eventually acquitted of the fatal shooting, while Martin was portrayed as an innocent teenager who simply went out one night for a bag of Skittles and got shot by this guy. Amid the outcry, Black Lives Matter was formed by three people, starting here with Patrisse Cullors, Alicia Garza, and Opal Tometi, when they started the hashtag Black Lives Matter and later formed the Black Lives Matters organization. The organization movement picked up steam in 2014 with the death of Eric Gardner in New York, but especially after that of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis. In August 2014, Dream Defenders, an organization led by the Working Families Party and what was left of the Occupy Wall Street movement, popularized the phrase, hands up, don't shoot. Dream Defenders was run by a noted art anarchist named Nalini Stamp. As for Cullors, Garza, and Opiti, they had all worked previously for front groups of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, or FRSO, one of the most radical Marxist groups in the country. In fact, probably to the left of the Communist Party of the United States. The FRSO is actually a hereditary descendant of the New Communist movement of the 1970s. In 1999, FRSO split into two groups, Fight Back and OSCL. Black Lives Matter and its founders allied with the OSCL faction. Now, this faction is overrepresented by blacks, gays, and women. Alicia Garza, shown here, is a rug muncher and has been a member of various groups such as the National Domestic Workers Alliance, People Organized to Win Employment Rights or Power, the School of Unity and Liberation, and earned the right to the City Alliance. Tamiti is the daughter of illegal immigrants from Nigeria and worked for the ACLU defending illegal immigrants from deportation. All three, Colors, Opedi, and Garcia, were certainly active in Marxist organizations, and then 2020 happened, the death of George Floyd. Now, without weighing in on the details here and the guilt or the innocence of Derek Chauvin, the police officer eventually convicted for Floyd's death, this incident was a watershed moment for the Black Lives Matter movement. They used video of Floyd's arrest as propaganda to define America as an inherently systemically racist country and precipitated months of costly demonstrations and riots. At the center sat the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, the flagship organization founded by Colors, Garcia, and Opedi. Within 7 days of Floyd's death, web traffic to their website spiked to 1.9 million views per day. The Princeton Crisis Monitor identified 633 incidents they identified as riots. Of those 633 incidents, activists for Black Lives Matter were behind 95% of the riots. Now, as for Colors, she said in an interview that Black Lives Matter had an ideological framework. Quote, "Myself and Alicia, in particular, are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists," end quote. In 2015, Garza told a San Francisco newspaper, quote, "Social movements all over the world have used Marx and Lenin as a foundation to disrupt these systems that are negatively impacting the majority of people." That same year, addressing the Left Forum, a gathering of communists, she said that, quote, "It's not possible for a world to emerge where Black Lives Matter if it's under capitalism, and it's not possible to abolish capitalism without a struggle against national oppression." The guru behind Colors and Garcia was Eric Mann, a former member of the radical Weather Underground morons of the 1960s and early 70s. Colors trained for a decade at the Labor Community Strategy Center run by Mann. For his part, after being released from jail, he continued to espouse the beliefs of the Weather Underground, particularly that their main purpose was the destruction of American capitalism and to create a communist state. But the connections run even deeper between survivors of the Weather Underground and Black Lives Matter. Susan Rosenberg, shown here, so there she is, Susan Rosenberg, former member of the Weather Underground, is the vice chairman of a group called Thousand Currents. They are a major radical funding outfit that sponsored the Black Lives Matter Global Network. And when they ceased funding it, the equally radical, maybe more radical, Tides Foundation funded Black Lives Matter. And what about the Weather Underground and blacks? Look no further than this guy, Bill Ayers, who stated in their declaration that the plight of blacks was basically inconsequential to the ultimate goal, which was communism. In other words, their so-called struggles would simply be exploited, and they were essentially useful dupes. And at the local level, they're just a bunch of Marxist ideology. For instance, Black Lives Matter DC openly dedicates itself to eliminating white supremacy, the patriarchy, and you guessed it, capitalism. As for all those white protesters out there in 2020, you too were useful idiots. In 1967, Noel Ignatieff invented the idea of white skin privilege. He was a member of the most radical wing of the Communist Party in the United States. In 1992, he penned White Traitor, which said, "Treason to whiteness is loyalty to humanity." Now, Black Lives Matter carries this ridiculous thought to new heights. To them, only a white can be racist. That's right. The founding fathers, the ultimate founding fathers of Black Lives Matter, are all white communists and faggots. But all good, so-called good things must end, and boy did they, especially when it was revealed that Ms. Colors purchased a $1.5 million mansion in Malibu. The irony, the area is 90% white. In a short period of time, however, they acquired $100 million war chests and got a bill introduced in Congress. They forced critical race theory into 14,000 school districts and even partnered with the musical Hamilton. She also doled out over 300,000 to companies she controlled and to writer Asha Bandeli and Damon Turner. Damon Turner just happens to be the father of her son. Where did the money come from? Idiots like Ben and Jerry's ice cream, 125,000. The Ford Foundation, 13.3 million. The Soros Fund, 11.7 million. And the Tides Foundation, 2.8 million, among others, and thousands of idiots throughout the country. United Way partnered with A&E and iHeartRadio to form Shining the Light, an advisory board for giving out grants. On that board, Van Jones, Judith Brown Dionis, and Rinku Sen, all noted Marxists. At the local level, Malini Abdullah of the Los Angeles chapter noted that the demonstrations were specifically targeted in white areas of affluence like Beverly Hills. And for what? The whole idea behind Black Lives Matter in the end was ripping apart the foundations of American society, not protesting police brutality. Within 3 days of the George Floyd incident becoming public, race hustler Robin DiAngelo convened a conference call with 184 Democrats in Congress and told them the problem was them if they were white. Simply look at the kitchen sink of Black Lives Matter causes. Eliminate poverty. Prison reform, illegal immigration, gay rights. It was later revealed that Lisa Fithian, who organized the Seattle World Trade Organization riots, trained protesters in Ferguson. And by the way, they stiffed them. So, capitalism was good to them, but not to the people, the useful idiots out there. Rasheen Aldridge of St. Louis, shown here, met Obama at the White House, and he addressed the Communist Party in 2013, 14, and 15. And even when these links are found, there are these justifications. For instance, this Princeton University professor, Kenga Yamada Taylor, I'm sure she's really not named that, who said regardless of the professed politics of people in the movement, they don't really represent the breadth of the movement. And basically, so what? There are socialists in most movements. That doesn't make them socialists. Yeah, it does, actually. Richard Wolff, another Marxist professor, dismissed a stated goal of Black Lives Matter, elimination of the nuclear family, as simply a mild put-down, although that plank in their agenda mysteriously disappeared from their website. And if you had suspicions, you were greeted with, how can anyone not support Black lives? Idiots at MSNBC gave these people a platform, and Van Jones at CNN wrote glowingly of them. The fact that Black Lives Matter is a Marxist movement and the excuses and justifications are best expressed by this fellow Marxist, Norman Thomas, who in 1951 said, Americans will take socialism, but not the label. So it's now rebranded as Black Lives Matter. Of that $100 million war chest they accumulated, have they spent a single penny to stop black-on-black urban crime? Or do they only care about the rare case of a white cop killing a black criminal? Because it is actually rare when you look at the statistics. Most victims of police violence are not black, and most victims, by the way, are not innocent. If they were dedicated solely to ending police brutality, no one would say nary a word. America has rejected socialism because of the prosperity of capitalism. That white settler state that Eric Mann talks about, that's your constitutional order. The imperialism that Robin DiAngelo sees is called a free market economy. So politicians who mouth their rhetoric or attempt to enact their agenda need to tread lightly and examine the intellectual sources of their so-called movement. And that's it for today. Thanks. Have a great day and a more pleasant tomorrow.